Mm.
Another film that I probably Gone with the Wind.
That's an oldie. What was your favorite line in Forrest Gump?
Oh my God! I don't have a favorite line. I don't even want to lie. Forrest Gump for me, honestly, is I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I'm an empath as well, but there's just something really, really mushy about that film.
There is. It's very sentimental, but I love the line where he says, "I'm sorry I ruined your Black Panther party." It's hysterical.
Look on his face.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks, just to shake his hand and hug him and just feel good about myself.
Have you met him yet?
Not yet. Not yet. I'm sure I'll see him on a set.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. So you go in and they ask you to improv. I mean, at that point, did you ever improv before?
I hadn't. I probably had one experience, and it was in college again. This group of film students wanted, students on campus who could be used for their film project, and it was going to be examined or something like that. And they asked me to play one of the characters. Good God, I hope nobody ever shows that. But that was my only experience with improv. Yeah, that was my only experience with improv. Yeah.
So when you go from being unknown to your face is kind of everywhere all of a sudden, how do you deal with the bifurcation of you in the sense that there's this now public you and these expectations of that public you, and there's also the you you've always been, right? The little girl who grew up to do this. And when you meet people, are they meeting that public expectation of you, or are they meeting the person that you've always been? Has that been a head game for you?
I think so. I think it's there's a turning point in the career where you realize that the expectations are no longer for you to be yourself. People are expecting so much more from you, right? All the responsibility being in the public eye. But I think for me, in the very beginning, I guess maybe my grandmother's teaching. She taught me about humility. So I was always just a very humble soul, very impressionable, always wanting to be around people as well. As I said, even the naughty kids in school, the ones that I would have to like write their names down and send them to the principal would be like, Nomzamo's our buddy, from them to the smartest of the kids as well. So for me, I think, being thrust into the industry was a very difficult thing. Imposter syndrome is something that actually happened when I was on set for Coming to America, but I guess we'll get to that point. But I think I did struggle with it in the beginning because I felt like a fish out of water. I didn't know what would be expected of me. Because if I don't treat myself in a particular way, then people will take advantage of me. But then you'd watch other people who would walk into a space and demand certain attentions and demand some kind of, preferential treatment would be, treated in a different way. And so there was also that struggle of how do I let go of this beloved girl, and I never did. I chose not to.
When you look at your life, are the relationships post fame different than the relationships you have with people pre fame?
A little bit, yes. And I'll tell you why. When people ask for my Instagram, if I get into a space where nobody knows me, which is always like the most fun, because then I can just relax and no one's going to be talking about my Instagram. We're talking about what I do. When they, how it is. What's your Instagram? What's your Twitter? And most of the time I just say, oh, I don't have it. I want to stay the girl that you met. I don't want you to now find me on Instagram or find the movies or find all the projects that I've done and think, whoa, this chick, you don't say that you do all of this. You don't say that you have, almost 4 million followers on Instagram, which is clearly a big thing, I guess.
It's a huge thing.
So you definitely notice that people treat you differently, and I have 13 nieces and nephews as well. Their friends treat them differently, and I always try and let them know, to not allow the social pressures to get into their mind and treat their auntie differently or treat themselves because they have auntie. So auntie, can you join my live so that we can get more followers? Auntie, can you repost me on your stories, or can you post us on tag us? So there's all those different things that I have to be very mindful of. But you do notice that people treat you differently, and of course how you enter spaces. But again, for me, I'm always just myself, and I guess that's what keeps people, intrigued, and it makes people stick around.
So I'm going to grab some questions from people who are watching right now. There are just some shout outs and people saying hello from Mexico, from Ethiopia, someone thanking you for mentioning Durban. Someone says, run, Forrest, run. Here's this one. Why you decided to leave Isibaya after so long?
Oh, so Isibaya was the show. I guess for me,
okay.
As I said, Isibaya, I treated it, number one, as film school for me, to be able to harness the craft, to learn, to show my respect for it, to grow as a performing actress. But also I knew that I wanted more, outside of the soapy world. Because the soapy world, you don't have a life. You don't have a life. You're looking at 15, 16 hours of your day that dedicated, because you wake up early, you get to set, you have to have breakfast at 6 o'clock in the morning, even though you're not hungry, but you know that you have a long day. And so for me, I was just like, I also didn't want to be complacent, because it can be a very complacent environment. I wanted to make more films. I wanted to make more dramas. And I always knew that I wanted to venture out into Hollywood, whether it be shooting Hollywood projects in Europe or shooting Hollywood projects here in America. I just always knew that I wanted to grow as an actor and be closer to the pulse of certain stories that I want to start telling, and projects that I want to be able to be a part of, and creatives that I want to collaborate with.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. There was another question about, let me see where it is. Hold on just a second. I got a lot of questions. There's one that asks, what inspires you? What do you miss most about Durban? Let's try this one. How was the feeling when you greeted Prince Nomzamo? Do you know what that's?
How was the feeling when I did what?
It says when you greeted Prince Nomzamo.
Oh, they talking about Prince Harry.
Oh, I see. The way they wrote it, it looks like Prince Nomzamo. Maybe that's someone I don't know. Okay, yeah, no, it's Prince Harry.
So awesome. He's such a everything that we see of Prince Harry in the media is exactly how he is as just a human being. He doesn't carry himself in a pompous way. He was just like a gentleman, just standing there. We're all supposed to be on this big stage and not mess up our lines and drive this important message for the world to hear. And so, as I'm walking up the ramp, he's walking down, and he's like, and I'm like, because I thought to myself, what do I do? I mean, what do you do? What do you do? Like, okay. And then he turns around and he just got that charming smile and he puts out his fist bump, and I'm like, there you go.
So how did you go from the show to coming to America?
I was always doing a lot of traveling back and forth to the United States, doing a lot of BET awards and doing a lot of MTV stuff as well with Viacom CBS. And I guess, as I was coming through and having the kind of meetings that I wanted to have, meetings with, execs and meetings with agents and meetings with managers, it was a planting seed for me, to just look out and be purposeful in the next chapter of my life. And I think it was in 2018 where I decided to have all the meetings that I wanted to have as well, to just lock them down and sign the contracts and get the agents and get the lawyers as well, because, you can't have Hollywood without legal reps.
Yeah.
And that was pretty fantastic, and I really enjoyed the experience of it all, of going into meetings, because with auditions you're the one who's always trying to sell yourself, right? But kind of meetings, you're meeting people who are like, this is what we can do, this is where we can take, this is what we can, be able to build with you. So I was very grateful to be able to do that. And that was the journey. I had done so much. I had done all the brand partnerships that I wanted to do in South Africa. I had done the work with the United Nations. I had done a drama. I had done actually 2 dramas, and I had done a couple of seasons of those dramas. I had done films, and so I thought this is the time to be able to not be satisfied with being, with reaching a certain point. And then being like, yeah, I've made it, I've arrived. No, what's the next challenge? I love a good challenge, and big monster. We make it look easy because a lot of people speak about the wins more than they speak about the losses. And so it is easier than it is, but it's actually not, in my opinion. And so I just decided, let me just go for the jugular. Let's jump straight into the belly of the beast, and let's see what we can do with it.
Did you go for a number of American movies before you landed coming to America?
No, it was my first one. It was my...
You're charmed.
I had...
charmed. Just some people walk through life charmed.
Yeah, I've done so many other auditions, sheesh. And had gone for so many go-sees and so many meetings with casting directors and selling myself, like, come on, give me a chance. And then it just happened, I was in Abu Dhabi shooting some content for the UN, and I got the call from my agent, and he was like, you gotta get on the flight. It's for coming to America, and this is the role. You can send a tape, but I would say be in the room, and the room is always great because then you can, have your charm and have some kind of conversation with the casting director. And so I hopped in, I changed my flight, I canceled the flight to South Africa, I got a new flight altogether to come to LA, and I landed, and I did the audition. And obviously there's steps to it. There's auditions, there's callbacks, there's director sessions, there's producers, then there's chemistry, so whatever. And finally, the big yes came. And I guess it had been such a long back and forth and toiling and thinking to yourself, this is your 9 to 5. Don't bet on it. There's always else. It's always down to 2 people, down to 3 people. And you're like, oh my God, I needed more. And so you navigate through the industry, and I was navigating through it and still doing the work that I needed to do as well, and just keeping the faith. And I guess
How long did that process go on for?
About 2.5 months. 2.5 months, eh? Right?
Was that stressful?
I mean, Josh, I don't know. Courting a woman for 2.5 months, you're like, when is she going to say yes to the date? When?
Yeah. And when they said yes, what was that like?
It was a sense of relief. Yeah. That, this thing that I've been praying for, this thing that I've been hoping for, was finally saying yes to me too. It was finally saying, for me, I was even grateful that I even got the opportunity to be that close to it in terms of the auditioning process, and how long that took. I was just thinking to myself, you know what? It means God is in the neighborhood. It means God is in the neighborhood, and I'm in the neighborhood as well. So even if I don't get this one, it's a good sign that I'm doing good, and I should continue on this trail and continue on this path. So it came on my grandmother's birthday, which is really special because her and I were just the greatest loves of each other. And I got my yes, and I thought, I'm also a terrible person because I don't know how to sit with an achievement. I'm always thinking, what's next?
Was your grandmother around to see that?
No, can you imagine? No, she wasn't. But I think she was. The fact that the yes came on her birthday, that was just her reassurance that I'm always with you.
Do you look for signs from the universe?
I do. I think I get signs through numbers.
Yeah?
Thing.
I don't know. You're so charmed. I just imagine the universe is screaming, "We love you" all the time. Because it just seems like, like the stars are shining just for you,
Yeah, I have to believe it. I have to stay open and to keep believing it, And So they always send me signs. I always see numbers in triples or see numbers in reflections of each other or doubles or whatever. So I'm always like, oh, I guess, the angels are communicating with me. So, yeah.
So you're on set remaking a classic comedy. You're with one of the largest stars in the world. And you mentioned you had a bit of imposter syndrome then too?
I did.
Talk about it.
I never thought that I would experience it. It's a new thing. And I'm grateful that I've been able to be honest about it and speak out about it, because I guess nobody speaks out about it. Everybody puts on this confidence suit. And for me, I guess it was a crew of almost 300 people, cast and crew of almost 300 people. You're shooting at the Tyler Perry Studios, which have just been, opened last week. And all the biggest Hollywood royalties have been in attendance. And then you are surrounded by, Hollywood royalty itself that has been relevant for over 3 decades, longer than I've been on this earth. And you have been tasked to be a part of this and bring all the charm and bring all the talent and believe that you deserve to be there. That's a lot of responsibility.
So how did you meet that challenge?
I had to have a pep talk with myself, number one, because I was off in my head thinking, my goodness, is this really my life? Is this really me? Maybe I don't deserve this. There are way more talented people. There are more people who have been trying to make it, who have been pushing for this kind of opportunity. It must have been by luck. It must have been there's no way, I deserve this. And so you're thinking, and also there's also the survivor's guilt of everybody else trying to be where you are, right? So you are in the middle of these two conundrums, and you still have to pretend like you believe that you deserve this, because the director has to call action, right? And I remember just having a conversation with myself at the end of this particular day that we were shooting. It was one of the first days of shoot. It was actually the second day. And it was Eddie Murphy's first day. And so I go to my trailer and I'm changing, and it's the end of the day, and I'm changing, and I'm thinking to myself, why do you feel like this? Why? Anyone who would be in your shoes would feel so full. Anyone who would be here would feel so grateful and be floating and be boasting about it. Why are you playing small? Why are you diminishing yourself like this? And it was just on my mind, and I thought, the question, I guess, when it comes to imposter syndrome is, why me? And I guess the retaliation of the fight in here should be, why not you? If not, who? And but the following day, Sherry Headley, who plays Queen Lisa, she pulled me to the side because we were doing some group picture, and I was just like in the back, and she kept on pushing me forward. Nomzamo, go in the front. Go to the front. And I was like, no, I'm fine here. To the side, and she had her hands on my shoulders, and she said, I have been where you are. You're playing small. Don't do that. Don't do that. And I remember just bawling my eyes out because I hadn't said anything, but clearly there was something that she felt in my energy. And I just bawled my eyes out, and she said, you're playing small. Stop playing small. I've been where you are. You deserve to be here. You deserve to be here. And I was like, how did you tell? That's how I was feeling. And she says, don't say anything. I can tell.
Such wisdom.
Yeah, she's like, you don't need to say anything. I can tell. And so and to me is something that I deserve.
So I know that you're a UN Goodwill Ambassador, and you've done a lot of work in Africa, the refugee camps in Malawi. I've been to many refugee camps myself, reporting all over the world, particularly in the Middle East. And I often found myself scratching my head on why I've been so lucky in my life, and maybe someone there hasn't, and trying to understand how our lives have the same value, and we are experiencing the same existence on Earth, but the existence of living in LA when everything is going right, and the existence of living in a Syrian refugee camp couldn't be more different, almost as if they're different lives on different planets. And I don't think I've ever fully reconciled it. I don't think I fully have understood it, but I know as I kind of go through this journey of being a journalist and thinking about it, it's one of the things I'm always trying to reconcile and always trying to understand. How do you reconcile that?
I love that perspective. I actually speak about it in my TED Talk about the dualities that exist, right? But I don't think I too have gotten to that point of reconciling with it. I remember this one time, it must have been February, and I had just been to South Sudan, which is, still a very much, war-torn country, and with all the tensions that they are. This is 2018 or 19, I think. And I had just, and, I had gone to Maban in South Sudan, which is the most remote refugee camp in the world, in the entire world, most remote. And I had just come back, and as I'm landing in Cape Town, and I'm supposed to host this huge polo event with the most elites. Now, you cannot even imagine the contrast of it all. I had a lump in my throat throughout that entire day, hosting it. Just looking at
Hosting it.
And telling everybody, raise your champagne, ladies and gentlemen, let's toast. But something was in here, and something was right here, just this heavy burden and this utter guilt, stupid guilt, utter guilt of having experienced what I had experienced and seen. And then to the exact opposite, immense opulence as well, and all this wealth and all this freedom. So I don't know what the true answer of it is, and I have not been able to reconcile it. All I know is that my job is to change the narrative of refugees, because for the very longest time, I think there's only been a singular gaze and a singular narrative, which is destitution, which is people that are just running away and have nothing to offer, which are economic burdens. And mine is to challenge that, is by not only empowering, but shifting the gaze and showing people that these are people who are economic assets, who have so much to offer. These are doctors. Some people are doctors, some people are teachers, some people were entrepreneurs before they were forcibly displaced. And until we continue to do that, I think we live in a world where a lot of marginalized people are changing the narrative. They want to control the narrative, because for a very long time, the narrative has always had a singular gaze. And so I just do my part to be able to do that.
And how do you want to do that? What's coming up for you with projects?
Well, what's coming up with me with projects? I'm working on a documentary currently. I guess, with all the work that I've been doing with UNHCR, I think this is the time now to put together a documentary. All of my people that I've met, and even so, not, again, for me, I don't believe it's 1 in 50 million refugees or 1 in 8 million refugees. It's one refugee 8 million times. And so how do we narrow that